Captain. Fast formations.
Hello and welcome to Piano Q&A. That dramatic scene you just saw, that was music by a fantastic concert pianist, composer and educator, Marcel Zidani, and he is our guest today. So let's welcome Marcel.
Hello. Thanks for inviting me. Good to be here.
Yes, very dramatic beginning.
Yes.
But I thought mix it up this week.
Yeah. Well, that was actually a piece I wrote that was originally in the Momentum. It still is. It's number 39 in the Hey Presto piano method. And I was chatting to you before, and we were talking about music or thinking orchestrally when we play or write piano music. So actually, it came. I wrote it for the piano first, but I have other ideas, and I wanted to expand the idea a bit, and I did an orchestral only version, and then I adapted it also for choir as well. Because I think there's a big link, and to hear vocally the music or through an instrument is quite important too.
Yes, well, that was definitely a great entrance.
Right.
And you would have not thought that would be from sort of a teaching book, right?
No. Well, I do plan to do quite a few more, actually. A lot of the other pieces in Hey Presto, they could be, rock and pop type of pieces. They could be much more classically oriented or orchestrally or string quartets. One of my other pieces is called Chanson Triste, which isn't in the method book. I adapted for string quartet and also for choir as well. So I tend to do that quite a bit.
Fantastic. Well, but before we get to all of those amazing things that you do today, as is my previous guest, I'd like to take a little step back into your past. So when you were a young boy, did you dream about being a professional musician, and that's how you're going to make money, and you're going to be a composer, and you're going to write books for education, and you're going to put them all together? Was that something on the horizon?
Yes and no. I didn't think about the composing part so much. Composing was just something that I did alongside the playing. And none of my teachers had as much insight about it, and they just concentrated on the piano teaching. But I did want to be a concert pianist. I originally started playing the piano when I was about 4 years old, but then it didn't take too well, and I soon gave that up after not so many lessons. And
before, you still did not want to be a concert pianist?
No, I definitely didn't want to be. I didn't want to play the piano. I just played once a week or when I was told to practice, but it didn't come from me. And then I felt it was quite a relief when my brother, he was asked to go and do his piano practice, and I was allowed to play in the garden because I didn't play the piano anymore. So I actually felt quite good at that point. But it wasn't until much later, I was about 9 years old, I decided to take it up on, I just got to the piano one day and started playing one of the method books. I can't even remember which one it is. And I just opened the book up, and I seemed to just glide through it. I seemed to know what the notes were, and I seemed to be able to read really, really quite well. I think maybe it was because I'd done a tiny bit before, and it stayed with me. And then I found the learning process so much easier. But I was self-taught for probably 4 or 5 years.
So you didn't have a teacher at this time?
No, I didn't. I carried on. I went through.
That's extraordinary.
So I did. And I just carried on enjoying music, and then I found the easy listening music that I really liked, and I remember me and my mum singing to the music of Richard Clayderman and people like that.
Richard Clayderman has sold out all stages in the world, let's be honest.
That's right.
And who doesn't know from the old, can't say older generation, but you know,
I know.
the younger generation is born in late 90s and 2000s, so.
Okay, well, we won't get that, but
why not?
I enjoy, as a 9-year-old, 10-year-old, I really like the harmonies and the broken chords, and that really got me into that. I mean, from there I went into Beethoven, but not before I heard his album, The Classic Touch, and the Classic Touch led me into classical music, and I thought, well, this is a bit of a short piece, because they were only playing movement.
Because he takes Schubert, Ave Maria, and other things, and then some music like by Senneville and things like that. That's quite, lovely that most people like, and he arranges classical pieces, so it's not all just. Before we continue, sorry, we have 2 hellos, one from Portugal, from Anita, hello. And one from Riga, Latvia, from Myra, who I know is also a pianist, was a pianist. So I'll let you continue. So from Richard Clayderman to classical to Beethoven.
Yes, I then followed up. I looked at the album and I thought, well, these pieces I really like. I want to discover more about them, and that led me then into, because we had libraries in those days, and I lived about 3 miles away, so I would have to walk down to the library into town, and then hire the recordings and take them home and listen to them. And so I did that, and then it got me onto Beethoven and Liszt, and I thought the works were amazing by these composers. So I asked my mum if she had any old pieces of music, and she dug them out of this yellowed paper it was on, and there were the Beethoven sonatas. That's Julian. I know Julian. And so I went through a lot of the Beethoven sonatas at that early age, just reading through as much as and as best as I could, and I found that the broken chords that I'd learned from a lot of the easy listening stuff really did help with the Beethoven and the Mozart playing.
Yes, exactly. I think it helps a lot. Sometimes people ask me, why do I have to know scales or play broken chords? And I'm like,
more foundational stuff there, really, isn't it?
If you know them, life is a lot easier.
Yeah, definitely. And so then I was able to cope with bigger things. But I got a teacher, started lessons when I realized I couldn't go any further. On my own, I decided to ask if I could have a piano teacher, and so we did have a piano teacher for a while, and then I was at different stages in schools and changing schools, and so my teaching from 13 to 19, I was never with a teacher for more than a year and a half, and so this presented a problem. I was taking on repertoire, quite big repertoire as well. I was learning on my own the Liszt piano concerto. Obviously, I wasn't playing it perfectly, but I was enjoying playing and discovering it all. And I then developed an injury called RSI, repetitive strain injury. And so I was about 18, 19 doing my grade 8, and I literally could not play for 5 minutes the piano, and without searing pain, and in this one, I think, in the left forearm. And so I had to do my grade 8 on 5 minutes a day, and I managed to do it. Got a good distinction as well, so I was quite pleased with that. But it wasn't until I went to university. My teacher, Mark Race, then took me back to basics. And by the end of the first year, I was on, after doing the right kind of exercises and repertoire, I was playing for about an hour, split between the day, over the course of the day. And then just during the holidays after that, before the second year, I'd stepped that up to 2.5. And then I was, thought, then I was where I should be. I could play, a good 4 hours if I wanted to, more.
Yes, well, what was, as we go higher, as it's not about us some days always wanting to play all day, maybe we do, but the repertoire grows so large that you you can't cover everything.
There's not enough hours in the day to do it. No, so I think through that work there, I mean, that's how I started off. Being self-taught maybe wasn't the issue there. It was a difference of not having a teacher that would be able to help me cope with these pieces, and the fact that it wasn't possibly the teachers that were with the issue. It was the fact that I was middle school age, then to more of a senior school, A levels, and then so it was and then I went to a Saturday music school, and so I moved teachers again for the ones that were recommended there, and I think it was just too many changes over a short space of time. I wasn't able to get one good approach on looking at technique.
But I think and for the rest of us today, it has worked out well because of the work that you do, knowing firsthand. So, silver lining on every cloud.
Yeah.
But you did go on, and you have an education as a concert pianist, and not only education. You are also praised for your playing. There are several CDs recorded, and one I'm gonna just drop in here as Spotify album. There we go. So that's a Life Cycle. That's from your album Life Cycle, and there's some glowing reviews of that. And I listened to that today, thinking about our interview later. It's absolutely amazing, Marcel. As much as we can talk about the early days, you really play fantastic. It's a pleasure to listen to. So how, from all of that hard work and all of the degrees, and they're all in performance, but you do a lot of composition. So how did that shift happen? Was that something planned, or?
Yeah, I've always composed. I've always had something on the go. I've always enjoyed composing, but I've never thought about it as a serious career option until, say, recently, the last decade or so. It's just something I've always enjoyed doing. There's so many difficulties that, especially in the days before the internet, of getting performances done, getting networking out there, and approaching people that are going to be able to air your compositions, whereas there's so much more avenue and opportunity for that nowadays. So again, it was most of my teachers were more teaching me the piano, so I didn't ever really finish a piano piece to play to them. It was it wasn't that kind of schooling, I suppose, and I think it wasn't until I'd left university that I was still composing, and that other friends and other people at concerts had heard me playing and said, well, you could make a CD with that, and so I started. And also, improvising is what I've always done. In bars, when I was studying at university, I used to do a lot of improvising, just to keep the background music going. And I think improvising really just gave me so many more ideas, and so that led to me then later on writing these things down and then trying to structure them.
That's fantastic. So just go a little bit back. So a couple of fantastic CDs on Spotify. How was it to maybe record the first time your CD? I mean, we know you had all this way up, and then to change your technique, and then the camography and so. How was kind of that experience? You had glowing review, and you were submitted for an award as well.
Yeah. Well, I in terms of the performance, obviously it's something that I work at and have to keep working at, and that in a way takes you from composition because you've got a performance to do. You've got to work hard at getting that right and getting that secure. With the composing side of things, as I said, it's just something that I've always had going along, and then I had the idea of and then I wanted to put a CD together of my own works, and the Life Cycle was an idea after having done a couple of previous more kind of amateur CDs. I thought I had quite a reasonable section here, and I could possibly combine that with my performing recital stuff, and so I set about trying to get all this stuff recorded. I recorded it on a Steinway piano in Cheltenham, which is a very nice Steinway piano, but I only had literally a couple of hours to do it in.
No, you didn't do the whole CD in a couple of hours.
No, I went back twice, but each time I could only be there a couple of hours to do it.
Because I wanted to say that seems impossible. That means that, you know, it's like perfect, go,
No.
already go.
Apart from it, yeah, you've got to hammer your way through. For want of better words, you've just got to go through it.
It does not sound like hammering your way through. It's actually quite delicate and very lovely sound, especially.
But also, these have to be to do recital in those days. They had to be without access to. You know, I've got a grand piano now. Without access to that, you've got limited time in somebody else's home often, and you had to get it done. So I couldn't just hire it and think, well, I'm kind of almost ready with those pieces. These pieces had to be recital ready, so that they could then be recorded in the, you know, with the minimum of takes. So you would have, sometimes you could get on one particular piece. I did in one take, and I thought, and I was expecting to not get it done that day. And so, and this was a piece called Broken Wing, my second Butterfly piece. But that one in particular, I thought I was never going to be able to do. It's got double glissandes up and down with, you know, in octaves. I thought I was just lucky that it all went to plan on the day. And but a lot of things I haven't been able to record.
Well, I wouldn't say lucky. But I believe that you worked hard, and it's just maybe if you don't set that expectation, if you know that this might not happen today, and then you just feel a bit more relaxed, maybe your hard work then just.
Yeah, I mean, but when you're under the pressure of time, you want to get as much done as possible. I mean, I've got recordings of La Campanella and the other Paganini studies that they just didn't go well on the day, and so they didn't get done. And there's a wealth of other Beethoven sonatas. You know, I did the Wallstein, but there's 4 movements, but there's a couple of things in there that I didn't like. The rest I thought was pretty good.
Isn't that a nightmare that you do like 4 movements and then maybe there are like a couple of bars?
That's it. I mean, you've got to get.
Like not even a couple of bars, like scattered few half bars somewhere, and you just can't.
Yeah, and if you haven't been able to record it twice through, then you can't put a movement on here and there as well, which is what is done, everybody. So occasionally, and if you're lucky in a live recital, it's different. But when you're trying to present a CD and the best side, then a couple of run-throughs at least is what you need.
Yes, and then you need that hidden stand which one you're going to choose.
Yeah.
And as more you listen, as more you don't know.
I know. So, as much as is on the CD, there's probably just as much that isn't.
No, but the CD is fantastic. So Life Cycle, if anyone wants to know, just go on Spotify. I believe Apple Music as well, probably.
Yeah, so it should be on with all the usual online streaming.
All the streaming platforms. Please go and listen, especially the butterfly movements. They are amazing. And so you did that, and let's kind of go a bit further. So composition, but also education. Before we get into the books, I had one quick question. So, we just heard from you how is the life of preparing things and the conservatoire life. But you're also in demand adjudicator.
Yeah, I've done quite a lot of adjudicating over the years. I'm getting on a bit now, and I've been doing adjudicating for
How did it feel first time, Marcel? Like being on the other end of the spectrum. So.
Yeah, I mean, first time you think it's going to be all right. Well, I'll just sit here and enjoy the music and decide. But then when you're asked to actually write up notes and so if you have preliminary rounds and then you've got to give feedback. Written feedback very, very quickly. It's a stressful job. Excuse me, my picture's just gone, so I'm gonna put.
That's fine. We can still see you as always.
Hopefully, it'll come back. It will. Yeah. So you've got to you're under a real time pressure with adjudication because there's all the different categories there, in and out quite often, and if you've got to provide the written feedback and it goes back to teachers, then obviously you've got to be very, very careful to get it right. So it's nerve-wracking, I'd say, the first few times that I did it. It took a bit of getting used to.
You have the kind of sense of because I got to do it last year or a year and a half ago, and this is going to sound very bad for me, but it was like upper level, advanced level boys, like grammar school, and they were all playing, and they were all really nervous. I don't want to say it gave me great satisfaction. They were all very nervous. I didn't want them to be nervous, but it was kind of nice to be on the other side. But you're right. There's so much writing.
Yes. I think that's.
If you don't do a pause before they start, you're just barely writing their name down.
Yeah, that's right, and you don't want to fall behind because you think you're going to forget what's played, and so you've got to do all the scoring as well alongside all of that. So you have to keep the rhythm going. But it is nice to sit back and think, well, I'm glad I don't have to play today. I can just enjoy a concert for a change.
Exactly. I think this is for you. I really like the piece, The Clock. Very interesting.
Well, thank you very much. Yeah, The Clock was an interesting one. I came second in the European Piano Teacher Competition for composition, and with that piece behind, and Christopher Norton actually judged it, and I came second anyway. So I went to the meeting afterwards, and he spoke to all of the competitors, and he said, when he started talking about his turn to talk about my turn for him to talk about my piece, The Clock, and he said, well, when I got this score, I came over here and I thought, I've easily got a first here. This is a first prize here. At least I found something that's gonna win it. And then just at the last minute, this other guy, Steve, he had a more jazzy piece, and Christopher Norton said in the
jazz players.
And so I came second. But,
I think the main thing that it works. So I think that's a good way to go to your compositions and your educational compositions. Yeah. And before we do that quickly, Wasim Baloch says, very interesting to hear Marcel's views. I think it's going to be even more interesting because we're just going to hear a lovely piece by Marcel, and then we're going to move on to talk about Marcel's book. So, Hey Presto and Away from the Grade. So, but before we go there, let's listen to this really lovely piece from an upcoming Hey Presto book. Is that right?
It's not in print yet. This one, not quite in the Hey Presto book, but will be in the next print.
Fantastic. Let's listen. Hi, so hello back. So that was lovely.
Thank you. Yeah, so that will be added to Hey Presto. It's a beginner's piece. It's a duet, and the teacher will play up here in the higher register, and the student plays with both hands. There are some flats in it, a B and an A flat, so it's fairly straightforward. And apart from that, there's not many notes. The right hand will just simply do the two notes, E and G, all the way through, and the left hand is it's very simple. There's not much to it. I've had 7-year-olds and 8-year-olds that are able to pick it up very easily, even before they understand or have come across flats. It's quite easy for them to be introduced to it in that piece. It will be in the Hey Presto adult method.
I think for adults and children, it's a very lovely calm music, and it's a little bit nicer than just the usual sort of beginners pieces or duets.
Right.
Maybe more current,
Well,
people can listen to it and go, oh, I want to play that. You know, that sounds nice.
well,
That's pretty.
I did put that on the social media networks, and I offered free copies out of that particular piece, really to advertise Hey Presto, and so that people would see the style of music that's in Hey Presto, or one of the styles that's in Hey Presto. I mean, that was based on the Rachmaninoff kind of sound with the left hand. Obviously, the right hand is just nice notes that I've added to it, really nice melody. And also with that, the student, however old, 7 years old, you can still reach the pedals if you're on the chair in the right way. This is usually with the chair pushed quite a bit further back, and so they're balanced but sat forward on the chair, and so almost in a standing position but leaning a little bit forward. And they'll be able to reach the pedals while still keeping the heel on the floor. And so there's only one change in there. So just on the A flat is where you change up and down, and then you repeat the same 4 bars. The student repeats 4 times. And so I did offer that free for quite a while, and I had, in the space of 24 hours, about 50 people take me up on that. So hopefully that introduces to Hey Presto as well.
I hope so. So if somebody doesn't know how Hey Presto book looks, here's a photo. So that's Hey Presto. There we go. And I have it here as well. So Hey Presto, and that says, where is that? Pedal your way to piano perfection. And then there's a quote I wanted to read. So to the row for me, read it. After having gone through all the difficulties, having played an endless number of notes, it is simplicity that matters. With all charm, it's a finer seal on art. Anyone who strives for this will be disappointed. You cannot begin at the end. So that's by Frederick Chopin, is a quote that you have chosen for the very beginning of Hey Presto book. So maybe you can tell us then more about it. Like, how did you choose to write the book? Why this photo, how it reflects to the book that we're just going to talk about?
Yeah, I mean, the origin, or how it all came about was really, as a composer, I was composing just music for myself, really, to play, and for the CDs would be to sell at recitals. It's a tough living sometimes. Sometimes a concert is a good income for that concert, and sometimes not so good. So if you've got CDs or something, then that can really help, especially as you're getting started in your career. So that's always a good way. But it was through teaching piano at different schools, and teaching piano at different schools, and also teaching from home, that I had the idea about, many years into teaching, that I had the idea for creating Hey Presto. Really, it was because of transfer students. I taught at a middle school. The middle school, it was really, I found that a lot of students that I took on that were from other first schools or primary schools were often, there were difficulties with, if they didn't take to it very quickly, after a year, if they hadn't reached grade 1 level, then I would lose them for the next year, and they would just fall off and possibly just do something else, just give up. And so I did, and it was mainly these transfer students that hadn't got, or that were complete beginners, or that hadn't got grip with the piano by a year or so. They would just end up leaving. So in a way, that was costing me money, because I would have less students next year, or have to rely on new intake. And so it made me ask the question, well, why are these students leaving? Is it the current music that's out there? Is it because of me? Is it? And so I then thought about the type of music that they do listen to, the electronic sounds that you do get, and the pop music, that style of music. And I thought, well, this is all very much, there's sound everywhere. It sounds, there's so much reverb and everything, and it sounds magical. And so maybe why are we leaving out the most the magical thing about the piano? As Rubinstein says, the pedal is the soul of the piano. And so why is it that sometimes these students, even at grade 3, have never even touched it, and then we're expecting to suddenly do complex things? And so I thought, is there a way of bringing in the pedal use from the very beginning, so that we could teach these 11, 12, 13-year-olds, that were the middle school age and upwards? Is there a way we could make it more interesting for them, to create a nice rich sound? The first piece is called, I don't know what it's called, Reverb in
3 lush notes.
The second one is Reverb.
Name for the piece.
That's what I was thinking of. But if you've got the A minor chord, it is 3 notes. But once you start adding pedal to it, and both hands as well. And reverb in 3. You've just got one change in there. In the whole of the first piece, you pedal all the way through. You don't even need to change it. So at the beginning, you just put the pedal down and all the way through to the end, and you've got a nice rich sound. The second piece, reverb in 3, it's got quite a few more notes, and there's a little bit of blurring. So we're then on the last note, and bearing in mind this is 11 upwards adults to pedal all the way through. You've got A, G, and F in the left hand, which do mix but very nicely. It's a nice sound. And then at the end, then we've got the pedal off sign, so take your foot off the pedal at that point. And then this is getting them used to lifting up and putting down the pedal. Gradually, as more notes are introduced, we become less and less pattern based. And so that, and as they get more used to the sustained pedal lifting up and down, firstly every 4 after these pieces, then every 4 bars, and then every 2 bars or so, or in specific places, and it becomes more natural. So I've got 8, 9-year-olds that are actually very fluent with using the pedal.
Well, that's fantastic. I did actually have somebody play at the Endless Journey. 7-year-old.
Yeah, these pieces, just because they appear in an adult book, they can be supplementary material for.
No, because I think that they're fairly contemporary and kids like that kind of thing, especially when this was for a boy, and I could feel that while we were sort of picking his pieces, and he's not doing grades, he's doing different sort of pieces and books. So he's doing duets with his sister, and they're actually advancing super fast away from grades because they don't have this piece limit wait for grade. They just learn, do. So they actually have a 20-piece challenge.
Right, that's very good idea.
Yeah, but that was a nice thing to introduce for a little boy. You could suddenly reach the pedal, and he felt good.
Right.
Playing that, because it was like, I'm just starting, but look at me, pedal and everything.
Yes, yeah. I mean, that is the idea. It's in a way, it's a novelty if they've never used it before. And just the power, as soon as you put the pedal down and all the dampers come off, it just sounds so good, so magical. And of course, they've not often experienced the piano in that way before. And so this was my one idea with these. Is there a way to do it? And obviously not everything's pedal there. There's some staccato pieces and pieces without pedal too. But that was the problem I had, is the transfer students, and that's what gave me the idea. The problem too was the transfer students of an older age group, the grade 8 and diploma level students. This was a particularly difficult group to take on, a transfer student, especially if they haven't learned certain techniques such as rotation and circles. A lot of them want to do the pathetique sonata, and that's got horrendous all the way through.
And I think you can understand it very well, because even before you had the teacher, you went like, oh, I'm going to read through the Beethoven sonatas.
I know the damage you
You had this way of rethinking your technique. So in a way, these students are quite lucky to transfer to you, because you can go, okay, I know.
Yeah.
And I can say I have experienced this. Yeah. So.
And to show them the movements that would help actually with doing it. I mean, you've got to get this the rotation for the octaves in the left hand quite well, and to feel quite easy, not easy, but relaxed and without tension free, and that will kind of facilitate the rhythmic feel of the piece as well, I believe. And so I thought, is there a way that we can because a lot of students that I was seeing weren't aware of how to do this, and they were so tensed and tired after several bars of it, and then it takes a long time for them to develop these movements, or even trust in what you're saying if they haven't heard of it before, and to continue in the way they believe, or to just do a little bit of what you're doing and not fully trust in what you're saying if you're a new teacher to them. And so I thought, is there a way to prepare students for these big pieces, but right from the beginning as well? And so this is why throughout the book there is full details on for most of the pieces, whether you're going to use circular motion or rotation, it's highlighted up there to give you some idea of or the students some idea of what technique would work with this.
Yes, and I just wanted to know, so for people who don't have the book, I haven't seen it, so in the starter there's a little paragraph for the teachers and also for the student or independent learner, and then you do, while it's presented sort of as a pedaling book, you really do look at several things. So there's a legato technique, wrist circles that you just mentioned are very important, and avoiding injury, and this is what I like very much. So it's always great that has been looked at, and then the sustained pedal. So there's quite a lot of things that are being looked at in one book, and the progression is quite fast. But as you said, it is for an adult student or going to different.
I mean, very often a lot of students that are 12, 13 that have played a bit on them by themselves on keyboards a lot of the time. They can already, and they don't know the piano so much, or not had formal lessons. They can do 3-note chords, and they've got a much stronger, or they're able to play 3-note chords. So they seem to have stronger hands and able to cope. So it is more of an adult method. But obviously, if a child is coordinated and has had lessons before, then a young child, then they wouldn't struggle with learning the pieces either.
Yeah, but probably, for a young child, you probably wouldn't use it as a teacher as
not as a method.
But you would use pieces in context to where they're at. And for myself, I thought that was, that's quite a nice thing to go here. So there's a lot of things. So shall we talk a little bit about rotation, because that's quite a lot talked about subject, and that is the circular motion on page number 4. Is that's where we're getting up to?
Yes, circular motion is introduced on page 4.
Let me show to people so this book is horizontal, so a little bit different, and it's very easy to read. So
yes, I mean, this is more of a classical type of a sounding piece. It's not the nice A minor-y kind of broken chord piece. It's two bars just round and round in the right hand. And of course, you can get you can play this quicker, and it's with pedal as well on the left hand. So this is just getting the student used to this circular movement, firstly in the right hand, and to try and develop some movement in the wrist. And the same with rotation on the other page. This one ties. it's the same two notes rotating through and through. And I think it is good to start from the very beginning, wherever possible. So I'm just going to adjust my screen again because it's easier if I can see you.
To be honest, because you want to see yourself, but we can all see you. Nothing's happening.
Much easier to not speak to a blank screen, so occasionally, I think that's going to go off occasionally. Yeah, so we're doing a rotation. Now, students are not necessarily going to get this. I've only had a few students that have played the first piece successfully with really good movement in rotation. And that was a guy that finished the whole book in one term. But he was, again, an adult student who played the guitar and knew the guitar, and so he broached the piano and he read through it. He didn't know treble clef or bass clef, but he was a guitarist and was able to play and picked it up very quickly, and he had really good movements. Not perfect even then. It wasn't perfect until he got to the end of the book, and I think we're trying.
Well, it takes time to because these movements are eventually technique, and first of all, it takes a lot of things. We have to be mindful when we do them, but we want to do everything quick. so as more we implement them, as you say, but at the end, you do though get it.
Yeah, and we do try to get some movement in the wrist, so that because the whole idea, in my view, is to save the fingers. There are times when you want to use finger independence too. I've concentrated on those two elements here, rotation and circular motion, to try and just get some wrist movement going on. Later on in the other book, that's something else. We're looking at finger independence a bit more too. I don't think we could just say, my view isn't to use just rotation is the answer to everything.
Well, I think there's a question of when there's a weight transfer needed with the whole hands, which would be rotation. You know, somebody thinks it's artificial, it's just transferring the weight to the next finger, basically.
Yeah, so there's
your hand is always relaxed.
Yes. And we've got to use all of these techniques rather than just focusing on one or two.
Exactly.
And it all works in harmony together, for want of better words. And so I think it is a good place to introduce rotation here, but to not expect if some students I've had that will not or were not able to pick this up in the first 2 or 3 pieces at all. And so you've got to move on at that point. And they're playing the notes well, they're using their fingers, and you're trying to work on the bridge and everything else while having fun at the piano. And it isn't. It's not something. The old saying, "Rome wasn't built in a day." This is playing the piano is difficult, and these are techniques that you don't expect to be moving your wrists when you're a student.
But I just want to.
You think you're going to be doing this and pushing buttons, I suppose. And
I think most people just think it works like this: arms out, hands there, and you go like this.
Yes, and I think the mind is also expecting you to use your fingers, and in most of the time just using independence like this, whereas actually we're using a host of other methods of technique.
And sometimes there's a combination. So when you need crystal clear dexterity, and sometimes you need a combination of both.
Yes, I mean sometimes.
And, as more advanced you get, you might do one thing with 2 fingers. Another thing with another 2, hold something with your last one left.
Yeah, so it is something to add to your weaponry, if you like, your armory. These are tools that for you to help play the piano. At times I'll be using rotation to do a trill, other times I'll be using finger independence. And I think the more of these different tools that you've got, you can then you can take your own view as to what is the best to use here, and what method to go.
Also, obviously, what sound you want to create and what the piece is like. So just a quick touch last on the book. So there are also really nice pieces that I thought major to minor that sort of reminds me a little bit of learning improvisation. And then I'm just going to show people the piece that we played in the very beginning. It's number 39, right?
39, yeah.
So the very dramatic piece.
Oh, right. Do you want me to play it? Should I play it?
No, well, I have to turn around and then I will be able to see what happens.
No, but should I play it?
Well, I'm going to make a good excuse by saying you should have arranged this to set up the cameras differently. I'm going to let you play it, and then I think we could move on to the up-and-coming book.
Okay.
Away from the Grey, because I think that is a fantastic selection of pieces. So we started with momentum in the very beginning of the show. We said the choral and orchestral. Let's just play now the piano version.
Piano version, yeah. This is probably around a grade 2-ish of the UK level. So here it is, and this actually doesn't have pedal, so this is pedal free. So there's a lot of staccato here. I'd say the trick with it is to just keep it really steady. A lot of people, when they play this piece, start to speed up and rush. But I think the key to making things sound fast a lot of the time is to keep a steady beat, like the campanella. If you keep things really nice and steady, and actually you don't need to take pieces faster or rush anywhere, it will sound quite fast and precise. I think that's the thing to get clarity to. Thank you.
No, you just have to bow. Okay, so that was fantastic. That was from Hey Presto, Pedal Your Way to Piano Perfection.
Thank you. Right, yeah, and that piece was selected for I think it was the Dulwich Music Festival at one for one of their younger performances of about grade 1 to 3. It was one of the selected pieces there in Dulwich Festival in London.
Fantastic. So let's move on to Away from the Grade, and this is book 1. So there's going to be a few books out there. So there's going to be 3 books. Book 1 is grades 1 to 3, book 2 grades 4 to 6, and book 3 6 to 8 plus. So.
6 to 8 plus, then, really, yeah. It's a collection of music that I've written over the years. The first, really, there were the first books 1 and 2 will be more pieces that I specifically written with the idea of originally going into Hey Presto, some of them, but then they turned out they were going to be much harder, more difficult pieces, so weren't going to be suitable, and I thought then they would be more about the grade 2, 3 level. So I kind of started grouping and categorizing these pieces, and so they had a specific educational purpose, but a lot of the other pieces that are going to be in the grade 6 plus, they're pieces that I was planning to play or I have played at recitals myself, and are of that kind of that level, from grade 5, 6 upwards.
Great. So let me just first show. I'm not being greedy here. I'm just gonna go on alone so I can just show how the book looks and what's going on. So hope everyone can see me. So before each piece, as you can see here, I think my camera is in reverse. So you have a little section about a piece and the main techniques used. And then you have the piece. So this is very interesting because it shows an example, and then there's a technique, and then there's also a little section about how to use the pedal. Some of these talk also about fingering. So before each piece, you kind of have a little notion about what technical challenge there's going to be and what you need to watch out for, how to use the pedal. So this is what I thought was so fantastic about the book. So every piece has meaning in a way, and also it helps to have that, there. I think the only other book I've seen this is, and this is going to be quite a comparison.
Oh dear.
I have Courtaud's book of Chopin Preludes and Waltzes.
Okay, that's not so bad.
Yeah, so quite a comparison in a good way.
Right.
But he does the same kind of thing. So he talks about the main technical problem.
Yeah.
In each, actually, he prelude a little bit of historical background there as well. Obviously, they're not his pieces, and it's not the best print as such for today. But I just love to have that copy just to read these notes, and I always think it's so interesting to see that. And now we have those notes from the composer and educator, so we definitely know
Well, I see when I had lots of dilemmas with writing the notes too, especially when it came down to fingering. Because I've tried it out with students as well, and so they've got copies before. It's not in print exactly yet; it's kind of on the verge, and working through fingerings and things, and then they're playing a piece to me, and I think, well, why are you doing that fingering? And it's because I've written it. That's why they're doing it. And so you then start by experimenting and learning with your students again, in a way, and kind of modifying it as you go. So in a way, they're helping you to proofread it again. But there are so many different fingerings that would work. And so,
well, obviously, everyone has a different hand. I'm sure. So, like, I'm looking like I could see your hand really nearby, but I kind of assume that actually we probably have a similar size hand.
Possibly.
I have very large
up to the screen.
Yes.
Yeah, that's about the same, I think.
I thought.
Yeah, no, near enough.
Yeah, people don't expect that from a female pianist.
No. Well, yeah, I think it depends on hand shape, and sometimes there is a bad fingering. That's what we do try and avoid, and that's why I specify. If the fingering is going to interfere with the phrase or something, or musically it's going to change something, or physically you're not coping well with this fingering, then it needs to be changed. I'm happy for students to take on their own fingering, even if it sometimes is a little unconventional. I'll certainly tell them, look. I might even give them a week to sort it out. But, I say, look, then we're going to have to look at changing things and possibly doing what's written or by putting something else in. So it was regarding fingering, there's nothing that they have to do other than to not have a bad fingering or one that's preventing them making the right sound.
Yeah, but let's talk about technique, and it says, and it has a little sort of introduction as well. Oh, and there's a few songs from Hey Presto as well.
There's two there from Hey Presto.
So we have, I can see your song is from Hey Presto, right?
That's right, and Momentum is in there as well. This hopefully then would give people an idea of what's in the Hey Presto book. So anyone that's got the Hey Presto book already would get, I'm planning to give a discount of 20%. So all they would have to do is contact me on social media or my email address and let me know.
Don't share too much the podcast after.
No.
I'm joking.
Yeah.
Joking. So is there maybe a piece that you would like to show us, and maybe I can show also people how the little notes for the piece look. So is there one that you would like to play?
I would probably play Dreaming, actually. Dreaming, I think, is a nice piece. We're looking at grade 3 level here. Preparation, this is probably a good grade 3 piece. It's got slurs in it, and so the movement of the slur needs to be executed right. The phrasing is good. We're good key for grade 3 is A major.
I'm just going to show a little bit how the notes look, so they're quite thorough.
Yeah, there's one particular bit that's where your thumbs, where the right hand takes the last note. Of the
this sort of reminds me a little bit of Schumann from Fremdenländer, from foreign lands of people.
Okay.
Quite a lot of Schumann goes sort of, when you interchange.
Yeah. Yes, and that's my only worry about this was when I thought about it. Are students going to cope with that? And it doesn't seem to be a problem at the grade 3 level, so it's here for that. And it's after a bit of an explanation of why we're doing that, it seems to be understood. There's lots of phrasing in there as well, which is quite nice, and obviously use of the pedal. As well.
Great. So shall we listen to it? I'm just going to put you on the full screen.
Yes.
And then let you play. It's almost like a live concert.
A little bit.
was fantastic.
Thank you. So lots of broken chords as well, but it gets into an F sharp minor, the relative key as well. So there's a lot to think about in this piece. A lot of balance at the right hand over the accompaniment of the left hand as well. As you really got to sing out. And
you have these really nice slurs as well. I quite like that. I like when those come, when you have to go light on the second notes very early.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you find with students, they come at grade 5 or 6 and transfer, and they've never seen that.
No.
So they just see 3 notes that go bum bum.
Not slurring it on the wrong notes, the weight onto the wrong notes.
Yeah, because I've realized that if students don't get shown early, they kind of, unless they've been asked to like literally lift their hand, they hold the note down until they have to play the next one.
Yes, and then they spring off it, and then you get an accent at the bottom of there. So yeah, the way I always do a slur is I drop the hand onto the note here. There we are, and I don't begin to play, until I'm really already lifting. And then I play as I've lifted up. So I'm playing as I go, but I'm not playing and coming and playing down there and then hitting the note as I leave, as I go. I'm lifting.
I think it's kind of like a soft.
Something like that.
Soft wave, yes.
So, but I
think my pupils know how to conduct that already. I was like, do you know what it's like? Yes. Yes.
For me, the slur is got to be one of the most important things in music, one of the most expressive things in music.
Because it makes the character of the piece, of the melody, it's so important. And I love the fact that it's introduced in the book and that it's not left to really late. And there's how ready are you to play another piece or not?
Oh, well, I don't know. Since I read them.
So how do you feel about, because I spoke earlier and you can say no, and I think you know what piece I'm going to talk about.
You're not, are you?
No?
Talk about whatever you like.
No, but we spoke earlier, there's one very rhythmic piece as well that you said you find very funny.
Yes, yeah, I know. Night Riders.
Yes, Night Riders, and I thought it was really nice. So this one doesn't have any pedal, and it's a lovely sort of staccato motion, and it's really fun to play. And there's quite a lot about that, and then that's together also with momentum. And momentum is a little bit different too.
It's very different. I mean, they're in the same key, and you've got the same
technique, but very different pieces.
Yes, yeah, and I based a bit of the rhythm on Night Rider, and it was a bit of a joke. It ended up being, and I thought, can I include this? Can't I? But I can't help but laugh.
I think you can, especially us. Like, well, I'm probably not an adult beginner, but I want to say us adult beginners. But especially not everyone who starts piano and plays around grade 1 and 3 is a child.
No.
And I think especially for the more grown-up and young grown-up people, that it's lovely to have a joke, because not everything has to be so serious.
No, it isn't. Music is a mixture of many, many different things. I think it's for a composer, it's your life's experiences, and isn't it really? I suppose performer as well, and you put it all into your music in various places, and it develops from there. And I suppose this is a bit of a joke, and the humorous side does come out a bit.
I think it's lovely to see that.
Play that one through. You want me to play that one?
If you want to. If you don't want to,
happy to do it. Yeah, I'll.
That would be fantastic. So I'm going to put you in a solo screen.
So this one does have a lot of repeated notes. Now, repeated notes, you often change fingers on very fast notes. I don't think it's not always necessary to change on a repeated note. Just when it's really going to help. So you could change here or not.
I love that. I love this bit.
Adjust the screen again. Hold on.
Well, no worries.
Yeah, so it's just a bit of fun there, really.
It's a lot of fun. I kind of, you can see me, but I was kind of like, yeah. But it's fun. It's nice. I can see like adults and children like loving this, and it's nice to have something fun. Also, a bit faster. And as you said, there's repeated notes, other things, staccato.
It isn't easy to do. If you're around the grade 3, I think it's definitely around that level.
I think definitely. I think I've seen some similar type of pieces around grade 3 and 4.
Yes.
And if you talk the most common ABRSM syllabus. So when, Marcel, I know that the book is going to look slightly different. That's why it's not out yet, because there's been some printing issues.
I know there are some printing issues that I need to just get on top of. But it's going to be out imminently, really, and it was due to be out about a month ago at least, so hopefully it won't be too long.
So hopefully June, but...
But then, when I set a deadline, it's always something happens and it seems to go fast. So.
And also we are in a difficult situation. It's not like you can go and physically, check everywhere and see, so you have to find everything online. And also the fact that, you have to do all of these things as a musician. So I've just got really... You just got really dark. All of these different things as a musician that I think we never really think we're going to have to do we?
The marketing side of things and putting books together, making CDs, but the marketing side of the industry is something that would nice if it was done for you, but no, it's not something that we look at when you're a student at university.
Yeah, you don't think I'm going to have to, I don't know, learn Photoshop and all the other things and then start making designs of covers. No.
I mean, it's been a fun process to do it, and you do learn so much more. And I think it's a good skill to have, and knowing and understanding your industry, I think, is quite important. Rather than, so in a way, it does teach you that, and it gives you a respect for that side of the industry as well.
Great, that's fantastic. And I wanted to ask, so this is going to be out soon. I'm very excited. Have you considered maybe doing a little album with the pieces of the book, so we could have them on Spotify and iTunes, so we could listen to them? So,
I mean, what I've got is quite a number of projects that are upcoming, and doing full recordings of everything, including the technical approach that I would use to do these pieces, to play these pieces as well, and to teach. They'll all be available online. It is going to be done. I've had delays with Hey Presto, as well as the performing career and everything taking over at times. I'm also planning to split the book, Hey Presto, into 2 by including other pieces like Pirouette, and quite a few other pieces that I've written, and so I expect to be complete. I'm not going to set a date. Well, I will.
I think you don't have to set a date. I think it just would be lovely if they were there, and because I think kids and adults alike, they like to listen and hear. Obviously, it's good if they have a teacher, so the teacher can have the book, and then they can say, "Well, you got to get this," and this is the Amazon link. So I can actually show everyone the Amazon link for Hey Presto. Is that right?
That's the one, the .com Amazon. So that's the international one. Otherwise, the UK, that's on. If you put in Hey Presto adult piano method, it'll come up in the UK too.
I think it's fairly easy if you just go on Amazon and put in Hey Presto.
Yes. Piano.
Mirror image is so hard.
Yeah, it should come up anyway.
It does come up. I checked.
Great, that's good.
And if you put in Marcel's name and last name into Spotify, albums come up. I checked.
That's good. That's good that it's all working. Somewhere someone's got it to work, which is good.
Yes.
Yeah, so all is available on my website as well. If you wanted to visit there, everything I'm doing there, the composing, and of course it's not just piano music; it's orchestral stuff. violin and piano, so chamber music. A lot of chamber music that I write or play in
Is it also for younger students? Do you have also some violin and piano for like learners? Or
not. I've got the some music which is for around a grade 8 plus for violin and piano, and for violin, viola, and piano. But I haven't, and I'm working on with the person that I wrote it in the music for. The violinist called Michael Bockman, and he's going to help. He's going to simplify the Conscient dancer that I wrote for him, and get a simplified version out there so that students will be able to play it.
Fantastic. Well, I think on that really great note, and the website is just on the bottom of the screen. So if you're either on YouTube or Facebook watching this or a later date, that's where you can find all the information. And it's been an absolute pleasure having you here, and nice to hear that so much piano music and original piano music.
Right. Well, thank you. It's been good to be here.
No, it was very great. And so that Anita from Portugal is saying beautiful. I know Anita is a lovely dancer. I'm sure she enjoyed pirouettes. She's a great ballet dancer.
Well, interestingly, this was a student called Evie gave me the title for that piece. I was unsure what to call it, and she started. She's about 10 years old, I think, and so she was really enjoyed playing it, and came up with the title for me.
Fantastic! See, inspiration. So I want to say thank you very much for your time. Yeah. It's been a pleasure to have you here. Unfortunately, we're going to have to say goodbye for now. We could see each other another time again, maybe talk more when the recordings are coming out. And for anyone who tuned in late, these books you can get on Amazon. Hey presto. So these are for beginners, 11 plus, or if you're a teacher, get it and you can use the piece for younger students. And this book is going to come out soon, Away from the Grade, with a selection of beautiful pieces and notes for each piece. So that's all. Thank you. And
thank you. And goodbye. Thanks everyone for listening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.